And we're live? We're live. Good day, whiskey brothers and sisters, and welcome to the Canadian Whisky Journey. We're honored to have you and the viewer and these lovely individuals on the panel right here on the side. I can barely figure out which way to put my hands on the side. My name's Dolph. I'm the founder of the Whiskey Book Club. I'm your host tonight. I'm the founder of the Canadian Whisky Journey and a whole bunch of other things we're not going to talk about right now. But for those of you that are new to us, I'm going to explain just a wee bit of what we're about. First of all, we are a group of whiskey geeks that love to share a dram. And this seemed like a good way to do that every Saturday night. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to share a dram every Saturday night and highlight a distillery somewhere here in Canada. But why the Canadian Whisky Journey? I was inspired initially by my sense of adventure, long-held desire to do the Whiskey Trail in Scotland, the Bourbon Trail with our friends down south. And Canada's got so much history. It's got so much whiskey. Why not do a whiskey journey right here? So a Canadian Whisky Journey was born. Tonight, we're at Bridgeland Distillery. And this represents our 50th distillery that we focused on over the past year. But Bridgeland is, however, the very first in-person distillery that we're doing. And it's so exciting for us. So we couldn't be happier to be here with the owners, Daniel and Jack, and you can see them right there. I can do this. It's the opposite side. And thanks, Daniel and Jack, for doing this and being gracious hosts tonight. I really appreciate it. And so let's start this off. We're going to do a round table introductions with your names and your other platform handles. We're going to start with our special guests, Jacques and Daniel, who will also tell us what we have in our glasses, because we have 3 whiskeys in our glass right now. So if you could tell us right off the bat, and then we're going to go alphabetically through everyone else. We'll go to Yukon Dave, and then we're going to do Joss and then Richard. And then we're going to start us off with a whole bunch of questions I got for you. So if we could, please, Jacques, you're up.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to the distillery. I'm Jacques Tremblay. I'm the co-owner of Bridgeland Distillery, but most importantly, I'm a distiller, a co-distiller here with Dan.
Yeah, and I'm Daniel. We call ourselves Jacques Daniel of the North, and we're just very excited to be here tonight. So thanks so much.
And welcome, gentlemen. I'm really happy you're here. Thank you. And that's one beautiful still you got behind us. We're going to talk about that in a bit too.
All right.
Dave.
Hey, guys and gals. It's Yukon Dave coming from his basement as always. I can only hold up 3 of these out of the 6 that I got today. Got Friday.
You're not complaining about getting too much alcohol, are you? Is that
no?
You're not
just,
doing that?
My hands aren't big enough.
Okay.
But yeah, looking forward to this. See if I get these back in order.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Joss.
Hailing. It's not quite as cool as a basement, but we are hailing from just out in back tent to our cottage right now. We're lucky enough to have internet up here, but Dram Society in Toronto. I'm here. I'm the president of the Dram Society. We've got a few different clubs around. Again, I won't go too much in the details of that because we're more focused on this wonderful whiskey we're about to try. Here with Mike, my father, also vice president of the club, and we're really looking forward to getting into some of these tasty drams. And that was a very cool still behind you guys, by the way. Almost looked like a time machine. I'm very excited.
Isn't it? And how you doing, Dad?
I'm doing well.
Enjoying it back there.
Yeah, I'm kind of muted.
I'm at the cottage. I'm a bit jealous, gentlemen. All right, Rich, you're up.
Hey, hello, everybody. I'm Richard. I am out on the West Coast at Salt Spring Island, and happy to be here. I run a whiskey club out here, and I'm just really stoked to be able to try a few new whiskeys from Canadian distillers that I've never tried before. So let's bring it on.
Excellent. We will bring it on. And I still like your SMWS behind you, but we're not going to talk about that tonight. We're hitting our Canadian distilleries, unless you bought the one Canadian distillery that came out with SMWS. But anyways, back to us. Enjoy, gentlemen. And like I said before when we were off camera, if you have a question, you have a comment, just come right out, pipe up. Because I'll take over a room and I'll just talk and talk and talk, right? So let's make this interactive. But we are going to start with our 2 owners and distillers, Daniel and Jacques. So I've gotten quite a bit of information from your Facebook posts and the various print sources that you have. But the book right here is where I first found out about you. So I just wanted to put that up there, and a quick little kudos to Davin and Blair for the definitive guide to Canadian distilleries, portable expert to over 200 distilleries and the spirits they make. Get the book for Father's Day if you haven't already gotten it. It's fantastic.
I do have it.
So that helped us out. You do have it. I knew we had it on the side. And that's where we first, it's not where I first, it's first where I read about you, because my mom lives 4 blocks away. So I passed this distillery, and that's when I saw it first. And I was very excited when I first saw this coming up way back when. Let's start with a quote. And those people that know me fairly well will know that I like quotes. So I'm just going to get that right there. Let's start with my first one. There, I can find it. There we go. So, it was an impossible to deny fate with names like Jacques and Daniel, and no accident that the distillery's focus is on brandy, whiskey, and eau de vie, highlighting our origins and our heritage. Now, I got that from your website. So, Jacques, I believe you moved here from Quebec with your family about 20 years ago. And Daniel, you were born here. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was actually born 4 blocks away from here at the General Hospital, right in Bridgeland. Yeah, well, I was born right here. Went to school in Bridgeland at St. Angela's. Went to school up the hill, St. Alphonsus, St. Francis eventually. Went to University of Calgary, and my parents are still just 7 blocks away from here. Just love Bridgeland. That's why one of the reasons why we moved in here. So.
Beautiful. And how about you, Jacques? It was 20 years ago, though, right?
That's correct. We moved to Calgary in 2000, and this was initially work-related because it was a temporary situation. My wife was in mat leave, and we fell in love with the Rockies, Western Canada, and then after the mat leave, we made it permanent, and we stayed in Calgary ever since.
Beautiful. It's a love story with our province. I'm glad to hear it. And, well, you probably miss Quebec a little bit, because I see some things coming out. I'm going to talk about that a little bit when some winter pictures I saw that made me think of Quebec City. And I'm thinking that's your influence, but we'll find out. Now we've read that you both met for the first time at the distilling workshop in the Okanagan in 2016. And gentlemen, you were both trained as engineers. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
What different fields?
I was an electrical engineer. Went through the University of Calgary, and I worked in oil and gas, building, and upgraders.
And I was in a different field of engineering. I was in geomatics. My study has been, my background is geomatics, but I was working in public safety for 911. We were building software for the 911 call center, so completely unrelated field. Yeah. All
right. Well, I'm wondering how you guys met up. Well, now I know you're at this course. First of all, who ran the course? Was it another distiller that ran the course?
It was run through Urban Distillers in Kelowna, and it was a week-long course done. I guess it was for kind of people like us who were thinking about opening a distillery commercially, but hadn't run any distillations in a commercial distillery in their life. So that's what the course was mainly about. I was one of the first to arrive at in the classroom, pick my spot, and I had a nice spot right beside me where I didn't think anyone was going to really sit beside me, actually. And I think Jacques was the last one to arrive, and he sat right beside me. So.
Yeah, the workshop started at 8 a.m. and I was there at 8:01. Dan was probably at 7:01 there.
Good. He's a keener. So we've got the keener, and we got the guy that he had one spot left to actually choose, and he went to it. So it's serendipity, gentlemen. But you know what? You both sounded like you had fantastic jobs. So I'm wondering what kind of prompted you in this direction. I know I love distilling and I love brewing, and if my wife would let me take a week off of work, I would go take a course as well. But I'm wondering what prompted you to.
Yeah, it was follow our passion. Right? Life is short. I like brewing beer. Dan liked making wine. The next step after making wine and making beer is to distill it. and we wanted to be out there and experiment with craft. So that's really following our passion.
Yeah, I mean, my family in Italy are vineyard farmers. I always imagined actually opening a winery at one point. I told my grandfather I'd be back one day and replant the vines that he had pulled out, and he said, "Don't waste your time." So I took that to heart and started, looking at fillings into branches and grafting.
Nice. Okay. And I saw a comment on the side. What we have in the glasses. We're just going to repeat this one last time for the people that are just coming up. Not one last time. We'll say it again. We've got 3, and this one is the single malt. That's the first one. There's single malt. The second one is the bourbon batch 4 at 45%, and then we have the cask strength bourbon, and that's 57%. So we're probably tasting it on the side. You can see it. We're going to talk about the cask club in a couple minutes, but just gives it a chance to air out, and we can sniff it all night. So if you're wondering what we're all kind of getting up to, it's this. But we're going to talk about all 3 in a bit, where we actually compare them a bit. So personally, I'm really interested in how distillers or distilleries bring everything together and finally start it off. Now, I'm wondering if you were both able to, right from the very beginning, wrap your heads around the money, the investment, the startup portion of the business. Since you both have a strong science background, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, does one of you have a better business acumen and the other one more artistic to go with the scientific? Because when you look at your stuff, you can see the bottle right there. Very artistic, very scientific. It all comes together. But I want to know who's kind of the business guy, or is it both?
That's a good question. I mean, it's not that one of us is completely artistic, the other one is on the engineering side. We've got both sides, I guess, in both of us. Dan had been already been a successful entrepreneur, so he had that behind him. Start a business from scratch. I was running a business, a publicly traded business, the division, but not the entrepreneurial side of it. So that's what's for me. But back to your initial questions, yeah, we've got this both sides within us.
And when we met and we were side by side, just like we are here today, we had a lot of the same kind of alignment. A lot of the distilleries are obviously doing vodkas and gins, and it just wasn't something we were passionate about. Not that we don't like vodka and gin, we were just not passionate about making it. And I always, when you start a business, I wouldn't have done it again without a partner. I was actually wanting to have a partner, and Jacques and I started chatting about that, and eventually, we started. The wheels got in motion to start a business plan, and got our financials kind of figured out, and started this. The idea came out in it was 2018, and we actually started construction at the end of 2018. So.
Nice. Did you get help on the business end? Did you have someone to go to?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you mean help financially or help on just like?
No, I'm not asking you how much money you got. I don't want to know if your dad fronted you for this, but what I want to know is who the experts were that kind of helped you out with this. Because starting a distillery, there's not a whole bunch of people. I know we have distilleries around, but it's not like starting a bakery where there's thousands of bakers out there, right? So how do you start?
It was not one mentor in particular, but what we did is visiting a lot of distilleries, right, over the course of 2 years. and you ask questions, right? You ask them what works, what didn't work, done all over. So that's the process we use by trying to learn from others.
Nice. Okay, good. And, I'm going to throw this out to the panel a bit. So, Dave, Joss, and Richard, either of you think of it, Yukon, you ever think about starting your own distillery, getting away from 2 brewers? And Joss and Richard, you ever thought about opening your own distillery there, boys?
Too much work.
You know, it's funny you mention it. I mean, obviously, well, I would say at least here in Ontario, or specifically Toronto, we've seen tons of breweries opening up. It seems now, it's the prerogative of any little town to, it's almost becoming like you got your schoolhouse, you bank, your lawyer, and you have to have your brewery. So it makes me wonder. Not everyone's going to follow this path, but I kind of think of the Yukon Distillery, two brewers, right, where they quite literally they had that like classic, they were on a a canoe trip in '97, and they decided to do a brewery, and then they just 10 years in decided like, hey, or 12 years in, whatever it was, they decided like, why don't we do a distillery as well? And so not that that's everyone's logical path, but I mean, there's definitely a bit of romance there behind the idea. But I think, as Yukon Dave was definitely highlighting, it's, the romance and the reality are two very different things. And so, and I'm sure as Jacques and Daniel can attest to, it's I'm sure a lot of work. It's not like you just show up and all of a sudden you start making great whiskey. That's what everyone's dream is. But just the amount of work that goes just on the business side and getting money from the banks and getting your space and your all the less sexy things that you like to talk about, the fire codes and all that stuff. Like that's a lot. There's a lot of groundwork there before you even start to even get to play with stuff. So, applaud you guys for going through all that. And I'm very excited to try what you guys have put together here.
Good answer, buddy. Richard, are you romantic like me, saying, I don't give a crap how hard it is? We're teachers. We're used to hard work. Let's just open up a distillery.
No, absolutely. As a Pisces, I am a romantic, but I'm also very pragmatic, and I think I know enough about whiskey to know that it takes a heck of a lot to actually make it fly and fly well. There's a lot of whiskey out there on the market that is, just getting its feet wet. I think it's going to take a lot of years before some of these craft distilleries can start producing stuff that can compete both flavor-wise and financially with some of the whiskeys that we get out of the States and Scotland. And so, again, I know enough to know that it's not something that I want to dive into right now at this point.
All right. So you say you're a romantic, but that doesn't sound very romantic.
Yeah, romantic pragmatist.
I'll go now. I'll quit my teaching job. I'll give him a month. I'll start a distillery. I just need the right guy to do it. And, I have to learn. But, gentlemen, so Jacques and Daniel, let's get back to you. So you met at a conference. You get along with each other. You develop a shared vision. You're going to open this place up. How do you decide what types of spirits you want to develop? So that's one. Was whiskey an ultimate goal or just one of the many? And once we see all the other stuff you'll understand when I say the many. And did your business plan always include like what you had out here, a sampling area? So it was always going to be a distillery and a social place, or did that just come along?
Yeah. I mean, initially, so when Ben and I met in 2016, for the following couple of years, what I had on my mind was to start a whiskey distillery. It was what was on my mind. I would start it small. I would start it 5 years after, or as a pre-retirement type thing. And it would be in the Crow's Nest Pass, not in Calgary, right? So it was completely a different vision for this whole thing. Through a series of lunches and breakfasts and dinner with Dan, I got to appreciate, I think, the challenges associated with starting a business by yourself. Dan had gone through those steps before in his previous life, and he convinced me that, one, you need a business partner to be successful, and two, you need also to hedge your bet on different things, because he'll tell you probably in a minute what was his plan. It was for something more seasonal. But,
yeah. I mean, I was just gonna make grappa. I knew we had to make some. And obviously, it is seasonal, and the brandy that we make. Obviously, we're gonna make wine. We wanted to make wine from local grapes, as local as it can be, which is basically in British Columbia. We do get grapes also out of California, but yeah, it's very seasonal. I had a lot of passion for winemaking, distilling that into brandy and grappa. But I love drinking bourbon. I just love it. Scotch, peated Scotch is still I'm working on. It's not my, a really good art bag, yeah, but that super peat is not for me. But I've learned a lot here from Jacques on that side. So.
Excellent, fantastic. And Jacques, he's speaking for you, but is whiskey the ultimate for you? Is that the pinnacle?
Well, absolutely. But you know what we found out quickly in doing the business plan, but also planning this whole space, is that between whiskey and brandy, there's lots of common processes. There's the same know-how, the same big steps in producing your brandies and your whiskeys. It's something you distill twice, you put in an aging room for most of its production time. And we've been to some workshop, and one on the aging and blending notably showed me that a lot of those best practice in brandy should be adopted on the whiskey side. So if you're asking me now, is whiskey the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to do the best aged product we can do between whiskey and brandy. That's why we built this place here.
And the fun part is, behind you, Adolphe, all those barrels there. We're having a lot of fun now, starting to, mix and match some of our, finishing a bourbon in a brandy barrel. The next one will be, finishing some grappa in a bourbon barrel, those kind of things. So because we make it all here, we're going to have a lot of fun with that. So, yeah.
So can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So where do you see the volume coming from? Do you see it in grappa? Do you see it in whiskey? Do you see it in the mixed drinks that you're offering? Because I always look at the pool of shoppers, and I don't think there's a lot of grappa shoppers.
No, there's not.
That's correct. I mean, grappa is a product that will go to the bigger market quicker. Like Toronto has a bigger Italian community than there is in Calgary, right? So with those line of product, brandy, grappa, we'll try to go probably faster in other provinces where our whiskeys, you're right, it's a bigger pool of consumer. It's something that is probably easier to establish yourself on a local market.
So I got a follow-up question. Have you talked to the LCBO lately?
No.
No.
Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah. Laura's commenting on the sideline here, Dave, and she's wondering if you're going to ask if it was legal.
No.
That's
no.
Dave's tagline. Is that legal? Can you do that? Are you allowed?
So my thought process is if you're going to make a product that more people can buy, and that's why most distillers start with a low-end vodka.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that market's saturated. So
yeah.
I really applaud you guys for starting with something that's unique and different.
Yeah. Good comment. Joss and Richard, have you ever seen a still like the one behind those two gentlemen?
I have not. The spiral tubes up above, foreign to me.
Again, I'm going back to the Future. Like that thing's got to be in a DeLorean somewhere. You fire it up, and we are definitely, we're going forward in the future. I mean, which would be great to age whiskey, right? You just bring it back to the past, you fire it back forward, and you're all of a sudden you got a 30-year aged whiskey. No, I was also going to just kind of comment on what Dave was saying there, Yukon Dave, is that it's I could see it be very tempting to. Follow the path of a lot of, and again, not to say that you guys are a new distillery, but like a lot of distilleries, they open up, they want to do their vodkas, they want to do their gins, get those out the door to pay the bills to keep the lights on. But, it's and I think this is something that you can also say that would apply to the brewery industry where, you've kind of got your safe bets, the things that people are going to buy to keep you going. But, it's I want to say like the distilleries thankfully are probably not as saturated, so you might have a bit more freedom there to play, like you're already talking about aging stuff in your bourbon barrels and working with your grappa barrels, really using the product that you guys have to kind of innovate, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and if I can add something on that, nowadays when you go to a liquor store and you're starting to have discussion about product placement, typically the liquor store owner or manager would point to the local section, and it'd be the gin and vodkas, right? And it'd be next to the gin or vodka section. And it's always a challenge for someone like an outfit like us to fit into those local section, because they're typically just full of gin and vodka.
Well, I've got a comment for the vodka thing. I don't know if you guys can see this.
No.
I had no problem with the $9.99. I just didn't like that they put Alberta made in it, because is that all we make?
And that's pretty cheap. And where was that? You didn't go in and buy a bottle, though. You just saw
I'm not going to say on air.
Okay.
Just because I'm pitching up to them to try and sell them some beer.
Okay. If they buy my beer, I'll buy some. It's perfect.
Kent wants them to wash his bottles with.
Yes, and we use vodka to disinfect our bottles too, which before we send them out. So that'd be a good one. We do. It's a cheap way to disinfect them, so we do. But I was asking about the still, because that's a really specific one back there. It's made to your specifications from Vendome, Cooper, and Brassworks in Kentucky. And what I want to know is, how do you get this type of decision and move away from a Collins still, which I think is more forgiving to a new distiller? Because really, when you think of new distillery, you see column stills just about everywhere, right? How do you go from column still to that? It looks kind of like a robot, and then something above it, and we all love stills. Every show I've ever had, we always like to see the stills. There's something beautiful about the stills, and just they're shiny, and people like me, I guess I need shiny, but they're shiny, but there's something in it. It represents something that could be, right? It's all handmade. It's what you do. It's a craft. So I'm wondering, column to that, how do you get there?
Well, she's a beauty. First of all, yeah, from Vendome Copper Brassworks, and she's from Louisville, Kentucky. And you can see, where's that, behind me here? We named her Louise. So we name all our vessels after different bridges here in Calgary, hence we're Bridgeland Distillery. And so, yeah, we named her Louise from Louisville. Well, we knew that we wanted to make, whiskeys and grappas and brandies. We didn't want to call them still. We're going to strip all that flavor right out. We do all our fermentations very slowly. If you ever go to the big manufacturers in the States, a lot of their fermentations are very quick. They're 38 hours, 42 hours. Ours are like 6 to 7 days for our whiskey. All our wines that we make to distill into brandies, we chill very cool temperatures. 14 degrees Celsius is generally what we do for fermentations, and they'll last about a month. So 4 to 5 weeks. And we do that on purpose to really keep the aromas intact. So it all starts with fermentations, and then we want that aroma and that flavor to come right through the still. We don't want it to be left behind. Not making vodka.
Yeah, we had some guiding principle when we were designing the space, and that's at that moment that we started making decision on equipment. And one of which was it would be a pot still, because all the product that we were interested in are coming across better in a pot still. The other thing is I'm a big fan of Glenmorangie single malt, right? And they're bragging about being the tallest still in Scotland, right? So in order to be a bit developing product along those lines of being a cleaner product and whatnot, that's why we created that line arm, an extended line arm, basically that coil ascends towards the condenser at the back, and it creates that same kind of end result, if you will, than what they do in Scotland with their tall still, right? It was a bit of a gamble, because Dan and I have never been distiller, have never been experiencing. It was just an idea. When we shared that idea with people in Vendôme, they were really enthusiastic about it. They say, absolutely, it will work. This is the right thing to do if you're after these type of profile, taste profile. And so far, and when you're going to taste the single malt, I guess you'll get to understand what I was just describing about Glenmorangie there, right? So,
Yep.
so yeah, in a nutshell, it was a gamble. It paid off. We're a bit nervous for the first few months of operation, but it's something that we're quite proud of.
Excellent, and you should be. Richard, let's go to you.
Sure.
For Glenmorangie, you've had it. You know, it's light, it's floral, it's a little bit grassy. Are you getting any of that off of the first one? They're single.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because just as I was nosing this last night, we were into an Irish whiskey, a Teeling, and I was noticing the same thing. And those thoughts of we were trying to figure out what this whiskey was blind, and we couldn't figure it out. But I was thinking lowland, but those soft grassy notes, the floral notes, they just come out really, really, really nicely. And the more this opens up, the more it breathes, the more approachable it becomes too. Yeah, no, it's solid.
Oh, and I agree. I think it's almost about time to taste the three spirits. But we're going to talk about the bourbon for 1 second. Then we're going to get into comparing if we can. And well, I know we can if you don't mind, which I hope you don't. No, I'm going to go back to that still. Just one last thing about the still. Did you do research about different types of designs for stills, or was it everything that Vendôme gave you, or did you have someone at Vendôme that you were just bouncing ideas off of? I want this, and they kept coming back with design ideas, because I'm still wondering how it kind of comes together in the very end.
Yeah, well, it was initially a process. It was like I said, you have to go with a pot still, no column. This model, the stock model, Vendôme, it comes with a little 4 plates column that would be there on the helmet, right? And we decided, you know what, we're going to put our foot on the gas here. We're going to be purists. We're going to do just pot still. We don't want those plates. And then along the way, when we were visiting some distillery, we saw some distillery that had like long line arm, short line arm, ascending line arm, descending line arm. So when you taste the spirit and you sample them and you ask the questions about you distill once, twice, 3 times, and that was one advice that we got at the course, saying if you're going to buy a still, go sample where the manufacturer has have been established in some distilleries to see what the spirit will taste. So it was a bit of trial and ideas and bouncing ideas with the guys over there at Vendôme.
And with brandy production as well, adding that coil, it provided a little extra copper contact with the vapor. As the vapor is going through, especially with vineyards, we can't always control how they spray their grapes. Typically, they'll add like sulfur. You'll get sulfites sometimes when they ship it. And the additional copper contact, it pulls those sulfites out, right? So it'll convert into copper 2 sulfate and just drop out. So that was another reason for it. We wanted a slightly cleaner, like little more reflux to occur as it's flowing through the coil, and just a little bit cleaner than your traditional process.
It's turning out all right. It's good. We're all happy. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to taste some whiskey, but I'm going to have one of you gentlemen talk about the single malt, and then the second gentleman to tell me about the Cask Club, because that's where we're getting our samples tonight. So let's start with the single malt if we could.
Yes. This single malt is made with, it's a true single malt from the definition of it's coming from a batch of barley that has been malted in one season. We're using our partner Red Shed Malt. They are the one provide us this beautiful, slightly roasted malt that we're using. And we're distilling, like Dan said, we're mashing, then we're fermenting for about 5, 6, 7 days. We're distilling twice, and we're putting in a cask at about an ABV of around between 56 to 61. We've got different casks at different proof. And this one is that you're tasting has been aged for 22 months, I think.
This one's, yeah,
22. And it was aged in a brand new cask, a bit like a bourbon, so char 4, so imparted lots of flavor initially. And right now, as of now, this whiskey sits in a used cask for the last leg of its journey.
Okay. And we're not calling it a whiskey yet. We're calling it a single malt spirit, a single malt. What's on the? Yeah,
well, this one we don't sell, so it's an exclusive thing for this event. We sell single malt spirit at the front. It's the white spirit. It's an honest whiskey. This one, it's just an in-betweener kind of spirit.
So yeah, we're excited. It's about a year and 1 month away to call the whiskey. So.
Already. And you know what? It helps to let it open up. We've had these open up for probably 45 minutes now, and it's settling down really nicely. So Joss and Rich and Dave, let's hear your comments on the single malt, please, gentlemen.
Well, I'll start. I really enjoy the nose on this. This just gives me a rich, kind of like I'm expecting a rich mouthfeel, like a kind of a full body. This is really cool. And I got a little bit of cotton candy out of it for some reason.
All right.
Just kind of in the middle there. This is really interesting.
In the nose, yeah.
And you're saying on the nose or the palate there, Dave?
On my palate.
Okay, thank you. Joss and Rich, either one, anytime.
I'll jump in, Rich, if that's okay. I was just going to say, it's funny. I think the Glenmorangie 10 was my introductory Scotch to the whiskey world. So when you sort of mentioned that as sort of like the I don't know, something that you guys were maybe not targeting but admired. I definitely got that nice fruitiness on the nose. And the palate is actually it's incredible how you guys have managed to almost kind of been able to capture that on such a young whiskey. And then there's something a little different in the finish, though. That's interesting. It's a little drying. But it sticks to your mouth in a nice way. Like it lingers, but it's not. Doesn't have that super young. Kind of booziness that you might find with other whiskeys, especially we'll call it whatever single malt might have. But it's very nice.
I agree with that, especially the finish that you're talking about there, Joss. How about Dad? What's Dad think? Has Dad been stealing any of your stuff?
I'm quite enjoying it for sure.
Excellent.
My palate trained as Joss's, but I am enjoying this. I was thinking, Jesus, when you said it was only 22 months old, I was going, Jesus, this tastes like it's much older.
Excellent. Are you the one that started Joss on the Glenmorangie? Did you give him the 10-year-old? Is that what it is?
Actually, I think it was the Dalwhinnie that.
Maybe it was Dalwhinnie, yeah. Maybe it was whatever I managed to steal from his booze cabinet when he was away when I was 16. But
good for you. I'm sure my kids are doing that right now. No, I know. My daughter said, "Can we have a garden party? Could I have she called it a Scotch party?" I said, "No. What are you doing?" I said, "Dad, I know where all the bodies are hidden. You have to let me have the duck."
Yeah.
Stop it. She knows how to press the button. So if she's watching out there, get your friends out of that room right now.
That's why you have to have the decoy bottles.
Yeah. These are the expensive, best ones, baby, up here. Yeah. Why are they white? they're clear. They're extra processed somehow. I don't know. Rich, how about you, buddy?
Yeah, thanks, Dolph. I'm super impressed to hear that it's only 22 months old. It's got a lot of character for that. It's those sort of new make notes have subsided significantly. Can't pick those up. There's a doughiness to it, and sort of a baked apple-y thing that makes me think of apple pie when you combine the two. There's a bit of creaminess in there. Last night we were talking clotted cream, and I kind of pick a little bit of that up in there too. As Yukon Dave said, that there's that richness to it. It's really lovely. Seeing that this is 22 months old, I'd be very excited to see this, 3-5 years in the bottle. Really lovely. You guys
Rick,
have done well.
I'm going to have you compare this too, because I know you've got some casks getting developed at Douglas right now.
Yes.
And have you tried those along the way?
Yeah, I've got a couple of samples upstairs, actually. Not back here, down here, but yes.
And what's the difference, do you think, between them?
ABV, particularly. The ones that we get from Stevely right now, they're coming in at around 60%, 61.2, something like that. A bit of a sucker for the cask strength, big, overpowering, in-your-face kind of stuff.
Well, me too.
The Steveleys have from Douglas have a lot of. They're very, very fruit forward. This one is just sort of a more subtle, softer. I mean, the ABV obviously makes it softer, but beyond that, when you get to the spirit itself, there's again, like I was talking about Lowland and Irish whiskey. It's just that Irish pot still. It's just a softer sort of afternoon dram, maybe a breakfast dram. And this one seems to, again, as I said, doesn't have that new make smell that can be off-putting to a lot. I like the stuff, but it seems to have disappeared almost completely. So yeah, and Stevely's the Douglas stuff has a little bit more of the new make to it, but once it hits three years or so, that's obviously disappeared as well. But this is for 22 months. I'm totally impressed.
Thank you, sir. And sorry for putting you on the spot there, but I knew that you had some new make
My
that
pleasure.
you tried fairly soon. But
Bring it on.
I'm enjoying it. Go ahead, Dave.
I got two comments here. This one's more on the marketing side. This is something that I would feel totally comfortable with giving any new person into the whiskey world. And as a if you put this out at 3 years old, totally comfortable with this as a 3-year-old, like as it got there. Compared to everything I've tasted as a 3-year-old coming out these days, there's no heat on this. It is enjoyable. So the second part of my question is, how do I get a bottle put away?
We did. So we did last year. Initially, created another club called the Founders Club, and people were signing up on the Founders Club by receiving every 12 a bottle of how it was tracking in our aging room. So the Founders Club members, they received the 12 months last year. They're about to receive this one in July, and they will get like the first dib on the when it becomes whiskey. So right now that's how we release that single malt. Next year, about this time, we'll be ramping up our marketing effort to get that out on the market. That's one.
Thank you.
This is sellable, like totally sellable right now, I'd say, especially for a new whiskey.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I just want to say a quick hi to Naren in North Star, Alberta. She's way up north, and she was asking where can she get it outside of Calgary. And Naren, I can get it myself in Highlander Spirits. They're based in Calgary, but there's a Highlander Spirits in Edmonton. And how do other people get it? Go to Edmonton and buy it there, or go online, or come here to the distillery. Go ahead, Dave.
Is her question, where can you get the new whiskey or the single malt? Because that's not out yet.
So right now, as we're going to move product, the Tabor Corn Bourbon is available through our online store or in liquor store that Dolph was just referencing. The single malt is not available. We're going to keep that as a novelty product for next year. And back to your comment, Dave, we decided not to bring too many product on the market on the non-whiskey side. We decided on the bourbon would be that one. The single malt would be set aside as when it becomes a whiskey.
So you're not struggling for cash like a lot of the young distillers?
Not that we're prying. How are you doing? What's that bottom line look like?
We have a lot of other products.
Wow.
Like later, we're going to talk about our old fashioned Manhattan and I guess cocktails. So.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. Let's talk about the Cask Club, because I pulled mine up here because I got in on this. I think I bought this in February. Is that when this came out? I think.
Right.
And what it is, it wasn't supposed to be ready until just about Stampede time, but it's the well wrapped. It is the Tabor Corn Bourbon. But if we look at the cask, no, I just want to show the cask strength. Oh, there's the strength right there. So that's the cask strength. So that's the third of ours. I'm trying to hold it really tight. There we go. That's one. All good? So I got number 15. Beautiful bottle. Gentlemen, tell us about the Cask Club, please. And how is it still available to people? And if not, too bad, but maybe there's another Cask Club one.
John just talked about Founders Club is no longer available. We sold that out last year. But our Bourbon Cask Club is what we introduced earlier this year in February. We wanted people to try versus our regular bourbon, or our bourbon at 45%, a cask strength version. And we also wanted people to try, our 2-year-old drink bourbon. We'd like to call it street bourbon. So yeah, we introduced that this year, just for, again, like bourbon lovers, just like we have a lot of single malt Scotch lovers. There's a lot of bourbon lovers out there. And yeah, we thought we'd start a club for that. Eventually, in a few years' time, maybe sooner, who knows, we will introduce more cask strength bottles for the general public. But we wanted people to get involved with the distillery, and then how you do that is become a member and follow us, bottle by bottle kind of thing. So.
All right, and we've got a little question on the bottom there. And I think Naren would want to know, how do I become a member as well, if she wants to become a member? Is that still open with the bourbon and the cask?
The Bourbon Cask Club will be open likely till the fall. We just bottled the cask strength just this week. The straight bourbon will be available likely next either early March or end of February, something like that. So the 2-year version. But yeah, we thought we'd cut it off sometime in the fall. We'll see how that goes. But it's available on our online store off our website, or you can come to the distillery and pick it up. Those are the only 2 options. So.
Alrighty, and why Tabor corn? Tabor corn as opposed to the traditional yellow dent number 2, which is what they're using down south.
We're an Alberta distillery. We want to use Alberta corn, Alberta barley, Alberta wheat. All the grains that we source are within 100 miles of the distillery.
Using all the local stuff. So this bottle isn't available at all.
Yeah, and it was important to deal with the farmers directly, and that's what we're doing for all of our grains. We're working with the Hamill family in Red Deer and the Molnar family in Tabor, and we know exactly the fields it's been planted on, and it's sometimes it sounds like a cliche, but dealing with the farmers directly, you know about the freshness of the product, you know where it's coming from. You don't have any surprise when you're opening bags, right? It's quality, and it's craftsmanship coming from the field, and it's something important in our whiskey.
And during the last year's pandemic, when it first started, obviously a lot of people were making hand sanitizer, which we did as well. It kind of hurt a little, converting our bourbon into sanitizer, but we also converted some single malt. Eventually, we started utilizing, some lower cost grains compared to what we were purchasing, and for fun, we were doing spirit runs of it as though we were doing our single malt, and we did notice quite the difference actually. Hence why we decided to. We're just so happy that we got to deal with the farmers that we did, and we made a great decision right off the bat.
There was a question here, and I've heard this as well. Actually, I've heard two things about Tabor corn: that it has too much water, and that not all the sugars are fermentable, and it's hard to use just barley as the starter for Tabor corn. So, do you use any enzymes extra enzymes for that, or is it just the barley?
Yeah, and on the question about Tabor corn holding too much water. The corn that we're mashing with, it's a corn that's been grown and stayed on the plant as a feed corn, right? It's been matured, because the corn that the sweet corn that we all eat in August and September, it's an immature corn that has lots of sweetness because it's not a mature fruit yet. So the farmers in Tabor, they leave the corn in the field until late September. It just dry out like your feed corn, and that's what we're using in our mash. Now, for mashing, we are using enzyme. We are also using malt, malted barley, and wheat as well, because we like our bourbon on the wheated side.
Excellent. Gentlemen, we've only got 5 minutes left, but I'd like you two, if you could, lead us, the rest of the panel, through the differences between the bourbon. Actually, and tell us why you called it bourbon, B-E-R-B-O-N, because there's a link there to the community.
Yeah, as far as that goes, we obviously can't call it bourbon, B-O-U-R-B-O-N, because that is protected. It would be U.S. So it was a play on words based on the fact that the corn we're using is in Tabor, so we use the B-E-R in Tabor, and we call it Tabor corn bourbon, B-E-R-B-O-N.
Excellent. And what's the mash bill on it, gentlemen?
It's 60% Tabor corn, 32% malted barley, and 8% wheat. So it's a wheated bourbon.
Excellent. Do you gentlemen ever use oats? Is that something that you would ever use to kind of create a little bit more mouthfeel to go with the oiliness of the pot still?
Yeah, we actually started distilling a pot still single malt still back in March. There's quite a few barrels just behind you that we call our Irish whiskey aging. So maybe for another one of your shows, we could review those, how they're tracking.
Okay. I think that would be a fantastic idea. Thank you, John. So lead us through these. Tell us what we should be tasting on the bourbon batch 4 and the difference between the cask strength. And don't just say it's stronger. I want some notes.
It's gentle in the nose for sure. Okay. I mean, kind of a spike to it.
And gentlemen, everyone can speak up. Sorry, I'm not just putting them on the spot. So Joss, Richard, Yukon, Dave, anything you guys want to say in relation to this? I'm sure if we say anything wrong, Jack and Daniel will either ignore it or correct it. It doesn't matter. One of them.
I'm loving the nose on the cask strength.
Yeah, there's a little more caramel, I'd say, on the cask strength.
I'd go with that. Yeah.
One thing, our bourbon is more on the dry side in general than the real sweetness, but the cask strength we're quite happy because we kind of elevated our end product when it comes to the sweetness coming through on the aroma.
You definitely get the heat in the chest, your Kentucky hug versus in the mouth. It's nice in the mouth, very round and full.
I'm not sure.
How old are we talking with the bourbons?
Sorry?
How old are we talking with the bourbons?
They're both 1 year old.
Okay.
1 year.
So definitely because they're young, I get a little more of the oak.
And so, what are you sort of expecting in the next couple of years when it turns 3? What sort of transformation?
So, like Jacques was saying, we're a little bit on the dry side right now. What we've noticed is some of the bourbons that we put in at lower proof. And what we've been doing is doing some.
He's the same building.
He's a little more of the sweetness through over time. So we're actually bringing the ABV down in the barrel currently.
So basically, all the angel share we got, which is about 3-4% a year, we're replacing it with water right away. We're not going to wait all the way in 3 years to start that process. And it'll bring that sweetness, vanilla, more on the forefront than it is right now.
All right. Good question, Rich. Thank you. Well, I'm enjoying it, gentlemen. I'm going back and forth. Dave, last questions or last comments before we head off?
I just want to make a quick question here. Are you, like you're calling a bourbon, you don't call it whiskey, so does the 3 years in Canada come into play on this?
Yes. Yeah, because any whiskey, whether it's corn-based malt or anything else, needs to be 3 years, and we're following by the rules. So this one is it's Tabor corn bourbon, aged spirit. I think that's what it says on the bottle.
Yeah, so you don't call it whiskey.
No. I mean, in the West, it touches wood for a period of time. Then it's bourbon. So, and it needs to go in the barrel at less than 62.5%, which we always do. So.
And we're talking about the barrels. So you use new Bulgarian oak for this, correct?
No, actually, it's mainly brand new char for American oak barrels. We did add a little bit of bourbon that we put in a Bulgarian oak barrel that was toasted. We were trying, some new things with different barrels. Obviously, we're buying European barrels like French limousine for our brandies and our grappas. We've also used Bulgarian for brandies and grappas. However, we did receive some Bulgarian barrels that were slightly more on the, I'd say, on the charred side than the toasted. And we wanted to try them out with our bourbon and our single malt, and it adds a different complexity. We get a little more the wood, I guess, that comes through.
Yeah. That was interesting because when we received those Bulgarian barrel brand new toasted, we thought that like our delicate brandy would necessarily not go along. So that's where we got the idea. Let's put some bourbon, let's put some single malt, and see in 12 months, 18 months what it's going to do. And that's what we basically used it in batch number 4. I think it's like 15% of that batch 4 was made with a blend coming from that Bulgarian barrel.
Excellent. That's really interesting. I love it. I love the spiciness to it as well. So that's it. That's the conclusion. Well done, Whiskey Brothers and Whiskey Sisters. That was the 50th edition of the Canadian Whisky Journey. We're moving our conversation from this. It was more formalized to a more relaxed but equally engaging conversation. So the owners, these two gentlemen here, will of course be with us. So Jacques and Daniel, thank you very much for being with us. Dave, Joss, and Richard, fantastic time. We're also going to thank these two people on the side there. See them? They joined us here as well. A little bit of tech support and a little drinking support as well. It's very good. You might be able to hear them on the side. And so, yeah, it's it. We'll be back in 5 minutes. And what better activity is there on a Saturday night than talking to fantastic people, drinking fantastic liquor? I was going to say whiskey, but I'll say whiskey anyways. Somebody can correct me. It doesn't matter. So we're off to the after draft. 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, something like that. And if you don't want to miss a minute of any of this in the future, click the like, click the subscribe button, and hopefully I get to see you in about 5 minutes.
Have
so
you
thank
sent
you
the
very
link?
much. And I always send the link, Dave. You always ask me the same thing.
So you know who you're dealing with,
And I
right?
send the link. All right, we're done. I'll see you later. Join us. Cheers, everybody.